Passion for worship, 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 passion for worship.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyallah. Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nur Allah. Welcome to our program Passion for Worship. Having passion for worship is essential for all of us. It boosts our spirituality, it improves our focus in worship, and it increases our chances of being accepted in the divine court of our Rabb Azza wa Jal. Having passion for worship will help us fall in love with acts such as performing salah, with acts such as reciting the glorious Quran, with spending in the way of Allah Almighty, with performing Hajj and Umrah, and much more. In this series we talk about the different ways of attaining the love, closeness and pleasure of Allah Almighty. And in today's episode we will be talking about showing gratitude and appreciation for the blessings Allah Almighty has bestowed upon us. Now, unfortunately, we live in that time where ungratefulness and ingratitude is at its peak. We are becoming those individuals, as a whole, we are becoming those individuals who are ungrateful. We are not showing gratitude for the blessings of Allah Almighty upon us. And inshallah Azza wa Jal, in today's episode, we will try to increase in our passion for showing gratitude to Allah Almighty for the blessings He has bestowed upon us. Now, we live in an era where scientific advancement and technological advancement is at its peak. We are having new discoveries, we are having new scientific discoveries, we are creating new technologies every day. We are seeing that we can do a lot more things, a lot of things which we could not do before. We can work out things and calculate things a lot quicker than we ever could before because of this technology. But there is no technology, there is no advancement that has been created which can help us enumerate the blessings of Allah Almighty, which can help us count the blessings of Allah Almighty upon us. In fact, regardless of how far technology goes, how far scientific discoveries go, we will never be able to enumerate the blessings of Allah Almighty. We will never be able to even truly understand the smallest blessing of Allah Almighty. Forget about counting the rest of the blessings of Allah Almighty. We will not even be able to truly understand the smallest blessing of Allah Almighty upon us. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in verse 18 of Surah An-Nahl, translation from the glorious Kanzul Iman, and if you count the favors of Allah, you will therefore never be able to count them. And in tafsir of this blessed verse, in the tafsir Siratul Jinan, the commentary mentions that the blessings in the creation of a human being are so vast that it is impossible to enumerate them. For example, a healthy body, a body free from ailments, healthy eyes, sound intellect, ears which aid understanding, hands with which you can grasp, feet with which a person can walk, and are all from amongst the blessings of Allah Almighty upon a person. If someone attempted to comprehend the smallest blessing of Allah Almighty, he would not be able to do so. So what can be said of those blessings that all of creation, when they come together, even then they cannot enumerate? For this reason, Allah Almighty mentioned that if you attempt to enumerate the blessings of Allah Almighty, even if you expend your entire lives, you will never be able to enumerate the blessings of Allah Almighty. Dear viewers, we learn that many lifetimes may cease, many lifetimes may come and go, but we will never be able to understand or enumerate the blessings of Allah Almighty upon us. And it is incumbent upon us to show thankfulness to Allah Almighty, to show gratitude to Allah Almighty for the blessings He bestows upon us, for the eyes with which we can see, for the ears which help us hear, for the nose which helps us smell, for the tongue with which we can speak, the tongue which helps us taste our food, the feet with which we can walk, the hands with which we can grasp things and hold things, even this small thumb. We need to show gratitude to Allah Almighty for these blessings and all the other blessings within our life as well. And if you truly want to understand, or if you want to get a glimpse of an understanding of the blessings of Allah Almighty, get this thumb of yours, tie it like this here, and tie something around keeping your thumb in this place. Keep it like that for a few hours, and you will truly understand the value of just this thumb, the blessing of this thumb. By doing this, you will truly value the blessing of this thumb, and you will truly begin to thank Allah Almighty for something as small as a thumb. Now, whenever we ponder over the blessings Allah Almighty has bestowed upon us, and we realize about the blessings Allah Almighty bestows upon us, it is common sense or common courtesy to increase in the gratitude that you show to Allah Almighty for the blessings that are bestowed upon you. And how do we show gratitude? Gratitude to Allah Almighty is shown through obedience to Allah Almighty, and disobedience is a form of ingratitude. So whenever we have blessings or occasions of blessings as well, like weddings, these are occasions of great blessings from Allah Almighty. These occasions should be full of the obedience of Allah Almighty to express our gratitude to Allah Almighty. But what do we see commonly throughout the world now? We see on this occasion of weddings, this occasion of a great blessing from Allah Almighty, we do not see the obedience of Allah Almighty taking place. In fact, we see the disobedience of Allah Almighty. We are not seeing the gratefulness for this blessing. We are seeing ungratefulness for this blessing. We are seeing ingratitude for this blessing. How? We all know that free mixing is haram and forbidden. But on this occasion of the blessing of a wedding, we see free mixing is common. We all know that music and dancing is not allowed. But on the occasion of this blessing of a wedding, we see that these things are common. Music is blazing, dancing is happening by everyone. And this is not a means or a way of showing gratitude to Allah Almighty for this blessing. This is showing ingratitude to Allah Almighty for this blessing. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us of those who are truly thankful and grateful to Him. Now, I want to start by looking at how passionate our pious predecessors were for expressing gratitude for the blessings that Allah Almighty has given them, to the extent that even if it would appear that they are deprived of blessings, that they have lost something which people would consider a blessing, even then they would not complain in the court of Allah Almighty. Even then, our pious predecessors, they would show gratitude to Allah Almighty, and it would be as though they have no anxieties or worries. Such would be the words and way of thanking and showing gratitude to Allah Almighty. Sayyiduna Imam al-Awza'i rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi states that a pious predecessor once mentioned this account to him. He says, I was anxiously in search of the noble awliya, so that I could sit with them and take blessings from them. I would wander the deserts, the mountains, the jungles and the forests for this very purpose, to find the awliya and to avail their company. Once for this purpose I travelled towards Egypt, and when I got near Egypt I saw a tent in a deserted area, in which there was a man who had lost his hands, who had lost his feet, and he had lost his eyes. However, even in this state, that great individual was praising Allah and expressing gratitude for the blessings his Lord has given him, using these words, O my Lord, I praise you with a praise equal to the praise of all your creation. O my Lord, indeed, you are the creator of all creation, and you are superior to all. I express gratitude to you upon you blessing me by you favoring me over the people of all of your creation. The pious predecessor rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi mentioned that upon seeing this state of the person, he said, by Allah Almighty, I am going to go to this individual and indeed I am going to ask him that has somebody taught you these words of praise and gratitude, or have you been divinely inspired for these? Therefore, he went towards that individual and presented his salam to him. And then he said, O pious man, I want to ask you something. Will you give me a reply? The man answered, if I know the answer, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal, I will definitely reply. Then he asked him, what blessing is it that you are thanking Allah Almighty for? You have lost your hands, you have lost your feet, and you have lost your eyes, yet you are still thanking Allah Almighty. What blessing is it that you are thanking Allah Almighty for? That person said, do you not see how my Lord has dealt with me? And this individual replied, yes, I see exactly how your Lord has dealt with you. You do not have your hands anymore, you do not have your feet anymore, and you do not have your eyes anymore. This is how the Lord has dealt with you. So what are you being thankful for? He said, look, if Allah Almighty willed, He could send down fire from the sky. He could send down fire from the sky that would burn me, and He could turn me into ashes. If He willed, He could command the mountains to destroy me. If He willed, He could command the oceans to drown me. If He willed, He could command the earth to swallow me up. However, do you not see that Allah Almighty has protected me from all these calamities? So why should I not express gratitude to my Lord? Why should I not praise and love Him? Dear viewers, have you seen how grateful our pious predecessors were for the blessings Allah Almighty bestowed upon them? They truly understood the blessings Allah Almighty has bestowed upon them. Even when on the apparent it would look like they are deprived of blessings, they would understand that truly these are not the only blessings of Allah Almighty. There are many other blessings of Allah Almighty which He has bestowed upon us, and they would focus on those blessings. If we compare that to us, whenever something goes wrong, there is some sort of adversity or there's some sort of calamity, we focus on that calamity and we forget all the other blessings Allah Almighty is showering upon us. If there is an individual who is wearing glasses or needs to wear glasses, or he wears contact lenses, he focuses on this point that he needs glasses to be able to see clearly. He needs contact lenses to be able to see clearly. But he is not looking at the other side, where at least he can see clearly with those glasses or with those contact lenses. There are some people, even with contact lenses, even with glasses, those blind people cannot see anything at all. But we do not look towards those blessings in times of difficulties. We look towards the difficulties, and that is the difference between us and our pious predecessors. When they were in times of difficulty, they would look towards other blessings of Allah Almighty. They would look that this adversity or calamity could be worse, and even that is a blessing from Allah Almighty, and they would express gratitude to Allah Almighty. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us from amongst those who are truly grateful to Him, and may He increase us in the blessings He bestows upon us. The rank attained by a person who is grateful and thankful to Allah Almighty for the blessings he receives is a great rank. He is elevated to the rank of a Siddiq. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma states that the first thing Allah Almighty recorded in the Lawhul Mahfuz was, no one is worthy of worship except me. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is my messenger. Whoever accepted my decree, was patient on the difficulty I sent down, and expressed gratitude for my blessings, I have written him as a Siddiq, and I will raise him with the Siddiqeen. Whoever did not accept my decree, was not patient on the difficulty I sent down, and did not express gratitude for my blessings, let him worship whoever he desires besides me. Subhanallah, do you see? We are grateful for the blessings Allah Almighty bestows upon us. We will be raised with the Siddiqeen on the Day of Judgment. If we contemplate upon our bodies, it dawns on us that our bodies are the center of countless blessings of Allah Almighty. Allah Almighty has blessed us with this faculty of breathing for the continuation of life. He has blessed us feet for walking. He has blessed us with hands for grasping things and doing things. He has blessed us with eyes for seeing. He has blessed us with ears for hearing. And He has blessed us a nose for smelling. He has blessed us a tongue through which we can speak, or a tongue through which we can taste food. He has blessed us with a stomach and a digestive system which allows us to digest our food easily. He has blessed us with this faculty of being able to relieve ourselves when the need occurs. These are all from amongst the blessings of Allah Almighty upon us. But the question arises, have we ever shown gratitude for these great blessings of Allah Almighty? Have we truly fulfilled the right of showing gratitude for these? Have we fulfilled the rights of these body parts? Have we fulfilled the rights of these blessings of Allah Almighty? Or alternatively, have we used these body parts? Have we used these blessings in the disobedience of Allah Almighty? Have we become deserving of the anger of Allah Almighty? And I want us to remember and reflect, think back to the nations of the past when they would be ungrateful for the blessings of Allah Almighty, when they were ungrateful for the blessings Allah Almighty would send upon them, those nations were destroyed. Are we becoming like those nations of the past who were ungrateful for the blessings Allah Almighty bestowed upon them? These eyes which Allah Azza wa Jalla has bestowed upon us, these eyes which we should be using for looking at the glorious Kaaba, beholding the beautiful green dome, beholding the beautiful faces of our parents, for looking at the faces of the scholars and the awliya. Are we using these eyes for this purpose? Are we using these eyes to look at the glorious Quran, to look at the books and the works of the ulama? Or are we using these eyes and filling these eyes with haram? Are we showing gratitude for this blessing of the eyes to Allah Almighty? In the same way, I want us to think, these ears that we have been blessed with, these ears which we should be using to listen to the glorious Quran, these ears which we should be using to listen to the beautiful na'at of the beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Are we using these ears in a manner which is showing gratefulness and thanks to Allah Almighty? Or are we using these ears to listen to haram? Are we using these ears to listen to the voices of non-mahrum women? Are we using these ears to listen to music? Using these ears in a manner which is disobedience to Allah Almighty is a point for us to reflect. And likewise, all the other blessings of Allah Almighty upon us, reflect upon them. Are we being thankful for those blessings? Are we using those blessings which Allah Almighty has bestowed upon us in His obedience, or are we using them in His disobedience? Sayyidina Muhammad rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, he relates from a friend of his that a man asked Sayyidina Abu Hazim rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, "O Abu Hazim, what is the gratitude of the eyes?" He replied, "Whatever good thing you see with them, you should publicize it. And whatever wrong thing you see through them, you should conceal it." The man inquired, "What is the gratitude of the ears?" He answered, "If you hear a good matter through them, remember it. And if you hear something bad, conceal it." The man questioned, "What is the gratitude of the hands?" He declared, "Do not acquire with them such a thing which is impermissible for you, such as haram income. And whatever right of Allah Almighty is linked to them, such as giving charity, do not withhold it." The man asked, "What is the gratitude of the stomach?" He said, "The gratitude of the stomach is that it be filled with food in the lower portion, whereas the upper portion be replete with knowledge." The man asked, "What is the gratitude of the private parts?" And he replied with this noble verse of the glorious Quran, translation from the glorious Kanzul Iman: "And those who protect their private parts, except from their wives or the lawful handmaids whom they possess, that there is no blame upon them. So whoever desires anything more than these two, only they are the transgressors." The man then asked, "What is the gratitude of the feet?" He answered, "If you see such a living person who you long to be like, Use your feet in acting like him, i.e. perform deeds that he used to perform. And if you see such a deceased person that you are repulsed by, then prevent your feet from taking you towards the actions that he used to perform. In this way, you will become a person who expresses gratitude to Allah Almighty. And the similitude of a person who merely expresses gratitude to Allah Almighty through his tongue for his blessings, and he does not do it through other means of obedience to Allah Almighty through those body parts. It is like that this individual who has a garment, who has a piece of clothing, and he holds it from one corner, but he doesn't wear it. That piece of clothing, it will not cover him properly. It will not protect him from the heat. It will not protect him from cold. And he will be exposed from one angle. In the same way, the person who only thanks Allah Almighty by saying, I thank Allah Almighty, but his actions do not show that he is grateful to Allah Almighty. He says with his tongue that he is grateful to Allah Almighty, but his actions are of disobedience. He has been described or likened to this person who holds a piece of clothing from the corner but does not wear it. My dear viewers, without a doubt, the lives of our pious predecessors are a beacon of light for us. They are a source of inspiration for us, and they are examples for us to follow. And I want to mention some accounts of our pious predecessors which shows how grateful they were to Allah Almighty. They would be grateful and thankful to Allah Almighty when wearing new clothes, when eating food, even performing other acts as well, to the extent that some of our pious predecessors, they would spend their entire nights counting and talking about the blessings of Allah Almighty, to the extent they would speak the whole night counting, this is Allah's blessed me with this is a blessing of Allah Almighty, this is a blessing of Allah Almighty, to the point that the sun would rise. This is how much time they would spend thanking Allah Almighty and contemplating over the blessings Allah Almighty has bestowed them with. It is mentioned by Sayyidina Sa'ad ibn Mas'ud al-Thaqafi rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi. He says that Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, he was called Abdan Shakuran, a great bondsman in the noble Quran, because whenever he alayhi salam would wear new clothes, or whenever he would eat, he would express gratitude to Allah Almighty, and that led him to being called Abdan Shakuran in the glorious Quran. It is mentioned regarding Sayyidina Fudail ibn Iyad and Sayyidina Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhima. They both spent an entire night mentioning the blessings of Allah Almighty to one another. Sayyidina Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi said, Allah Almighty granted those blessings and He gave us these blessings. And in this manner the discussion would continue the entire night. My dear viewers, the purpose of mentioning how grateful our pious predecessors were is to increase our passion for showing gratitude to Allah Almighty. But on the one side, where we look at the benefits of showing gratitude to Allah Almighty, that the more you are grateful to Him, the more He will increase you in your blessings. Let's look at the other side of those individuals who are not grateful to Allah Almighty. Again, the fourth Caliph of Islam, Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, Karamallahu Wajhahul Kareem, he states, save yourself from the removal of blessings, because that which is lost is not gained once more. So once you lose something, you will not gain it again. He further mentions, when you begin receiving blessings from here and there, do not sever them by becoming ungrateful. So he is telling us, do not be a means of the bounties and blessings of Allah Almighty being removed from you by being ungrateful. Always be in the gratitude to Allah Almighty for the blessings you are receiving. Sayyidina Mughira radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, whoever confers a blessing on you, show gratitude to him, and whoever expresses gratitude to you, confer a blessing on him. Because a blessing does not remain with ingratitude, and it is removed. It is not removed when you are thankful for it. My dear viewers, what do we learn from these? If you are ungrateful for the blessings Allah Almighty bestows upon you, that ungratefulness, that ingratitude could be a means of that blessing being removed. So always express your gratitude to Allah Almighty. Always express your thanks to Allah Almighty for the blessings that He has bestowed you with. whether that be your eyes, whether that be your ears, whether that be your body limbs, whether that be some other form of blessing, always express gratitude to Allah Almighty. Otherwise, if you are ungrateful, there is a fear that that blessing will be removed. But if you are truly grateful for that blessing, inshallah Azza wa Jal, you will be increased in that blessing. Now, I want to finish today's episode by discussing different ways how can we increase in our gratitude. It's easy to say, be grateful for the blessings that Allah Almighty has bestowed upon you. And people might think, yes, we want to become grateful. How do we express our gratitude? Number one, study about gratitude. Study how you can be grateful to Allah Almighty about the blessings He has bestowed upon you. Because the more you realize about this, the more you understand the blessings Allah Almighty has bestowed you with, the more you will fall in love with these blessings, the more you will want to thank Allah Almighty. And the more you study these books, the more you will realize how you can truly show gratitude to Allah Almighty. So number one, study about the blessings of Allah Almighty. Study the books of the scholars which highlight to us and show us how we are being blessed by Allah Almighty. And those books will show us how to truly express our gratitude to Allah Almighty. Number two, look at people who have a lower status than you. Because if you look at somebody who is lower than you or has less than you, then automatically you will be thankful for that thing which you have. But if you are looking at those people who are higher than you or have more than you, you will feel lower than them. You will feel that I wish I had what he has. And just that wishing you have what he has is a means of not being thankful for what you actually have right now. So always look at those who are lower in status than you. This will help you become grateful to Allah Almighty for the blessings you have. For example, if there's a person who is walking everywhere, he does not have a car, he does not have a motorbike, he does not have a mode of transport, the only mode of transport he has are his 2 feet and he has to walk everywhere. He should be looking at that individual who does not have any feet at all, who cannot walk around, and then he will be grateful for the blessing of having 2 feet. But what do we commonly see? Instead of looking that way, he is looking at that person who has a motorbike and wishing, I wish I had a motorbike so I could go quicker everywhere. So we should look at those who have less than us, who apparently have less than us, and that will be a means of increasing in our gratitude to Allah Almighty. And number three, and lastly, reflect on the blessings of Allah Almighty. Sometimes just sit and think about the blessings of Allah Almighty. Some things which you may think are small are great blessings of Allah Almighty. For example, just this thing of being able to go to the toilet whenever you want or need to relieve yourself. This is a great blessing of Allah Almighty. Imagine we had this need but we could not relieve ourselves, and there are people like that. They cannot naturally relieve themselves. How much of a difficulty will they be in? So if you reflect on this blessing, you will become grateful for this blessing which otherwise you may have thinking or thought or you may have taken as granted. The same way, just this small blessing of when you put something in your mouth that you can swallow it, that morsel of food, you are given this ability to swallow it. There are some people, when they put that morsel of food in their mouth, their brain does not connect properly and they're not able to swallow that food. So even this small thing of when you put that morsel of food in your mouth and you're able to swallow it, contemplate what a great blessing of Allah Almighty this is. And likewise, contemplate over all the other blessings in your life that Allah Almighty has bestowed upon you. And this will be a means of being grateful to Allah Almighty. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us all from amongst those who are truly grateful to Him for the blessings He bestows upon us. And may He increase in these blessings that He bestows upon us. Ameen. Bijahin Nabiyil Ameen. Sallu ala al-Habib. Sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Passion for worship, 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 passion for worship.